Most viewpoint characters in A Song of Ice and Fire have nervous habits of some sort or another. These were not really present in the Game of Thrones television show, as it's difficult to adapt to a visual medium. However, in the books, when we're actually in these characters' heads, we see a variety of different habits and tics happening pretty much all of the time. Jon Snow flexes his fingers whenever he's uncertain or fearful. Arya bites the inside of her lip whenever she's being dishonest, and Davos Seaworth touches his necklace whenever he's anxious. This necklace is of immense sentimental value to Sir Davos, as it contains the 4 finger bones hacked off by King Stannis Baratheon as punishment for being a smuggler. We see Davos carry these throughout the first book he's in, A Clash of Kings, and he continually holds them in moments of stress or whenever he's nervous. When we begin Davos's perspective in the most recent novel in the series, A Dance with Dragons, which by recent I mean 11 years ago, but I digress, we find Davos in an incredibly nerve-wracking situation. Davos is trying to win Northern Lords to Stannis' cause in White Harbor, specifically the Manderleys, who are openly supportive of the Boltons and of the Lannisters. At several points throughout his 4 chapters in Dance, Davos instinctively grabs for his bag of finger bones, but finds it absent in his time of needs. This begs the question, where are Davos's finger bones, and why are they not with the Onion Knight? Dance gives us a plethora of new and unexpected point of view characters. We have Jon Connington, an exiled lord wholly devoted to Aegon's claim, Quentyn Martell, who is traveling across the Narrow Sea to attempt to woo Dany to his side and to attempt to aid her conquest of Westeros, and Barristan Selmy, the Lord Commander of Daenerys' Queensguard. Among all of these new point of view characters, we have a single chapter that is perhaps the most surprising and brief new point of view. I remember being shocked on my first read of A Dance with Dragons that this character was a point of view at all. About halfway through Dance, we get a chapter from the point of view of the Red Priestess Melisandre. This seems strange at first glance, as Jon is already at the Wall and there's no immediate reason for Mel to have a point of view chapter at this particular point in the story. However, this single chapter is incredibly important for establishing what's to come in the Winds of Winter, thanks in part to revealing the fate of Davos's finger bones. To explain where these finger bones are, we need to do a little bit of background on some changes made from the book to the show. In both mediums, Mance Rayder is defeated when Stannis arrives at the Wall. In both mediums, Stannis resolves to burn Mance due to the King Beyond the Wall not kneeling to the one true king. In the show, Mance is burned and subsequently shot in the heart by Jon Snow. In the books, he appears to burn as well. However, we learn the truth behind this incident in Melisandre's point of view chapter, and that is part of what makes it so important. In fact, it was not Mance who was burned, but another wildling who goes by the name Rattleshirt. Melisandre placed an illusion, also called a glamour, on both Mance and on Rattleshirt, switching their places. Mance had been glamored to look like Rattleshirt ever since the pyre, hiding amongst the bones of the other wildlings' clothing. Mance is an incredibly important character in the books, and the fact that he survives is the big reveal of Melisandre's single point of view chapter in Dance. She gives a speech to Jon about her magic and where it comes from, including this very interesting passage. Quote, "The bones help," said Melisandre. "The bones remember. The strongest glamours are built of such things. A dead man's boots, a hank of hair, a bag of finger bones. With whispered words and a prayer, a man's shadow can be drawn forth from such and draped around another as a cloak. The wearer's essence does not change, but only his seeming." Melisandre specifically references a bag of finger bones as a potential component for a glamour. This is quite strange, as only one character in the entirety of our story has such a bag, or has had those finger bones removed at all. Earlier in Dance, Davos recalls that he lost his bag of finger bones during the Battle of the Blackwater. This quote from Melisandre hints that they might not be as lost as he believes. Perhaps Melisandre stole these finger bones prior to the battle, or perhaps they were consumed by Tyrion's wildfire and somehow delivered to her via the flames of the Lord of Light. One way or another, Melisandre has come into possession of Davos's finger bones and mentions them as a component for a glamour. This could actually add credence to why Davos lost the Blackwater. He didn't have his lucky charm with him, or at least in his mind. But what end comes from this? What is Melisandre's goal in stealing these finger bones and using them for a glamour? One of the most iconic scenes from Season 5 of Game of Thrones is the Burning of Shireen Baratheon. However, this is not entirely accurate to what is going to happen in the books. We know for a fact that David and Dan were directly told by George R.R. Martin about the burning of Shireen. However, at present, Shireen and Stannis are quite far away from one another. Stannis' army is snowed in, trapped at the Crofters' village in their attempt to march on Winterfell, whereas Shireen resides at Eastwatch by the sea. That being said, we do know that this burning will occur. Due to Stannis being quite far away, it's quite unlikely that he'd be involved at all. He even cements Shireen's status as his heir in the Theon sample chapter we have from the Winds of Winter. That all being said, Stannis is far less likely to burn his daughter than some others would be, namely his own Red Priestess. At the end of A Dance with Dragons, Jon Snow is killed by brothers of the Night's Watch. He has very few allies left at Castle Black as of his death, but Melisandre remains. We've seen throughout our story the resurrection powers of the Lord of Light. Beric Dondarrion was brought back from death 6 times before eventually transferring his life to Lady Stoneheart. However, it doesn't seem as though Jon's return will be as quick as Beric's was. He is killed in the dead of night, meaning that Melisandre would not be able to perform the same final rite that Thoros of Myr consistently does for Beric. I think about this the same way I do Revivify versus Raise Dead in Dungeons & Dragons, if any of you would get that reference. The one occasion we see the Lord of Light bring someone back after an extended period is with Lady Stoneheart, who's brought back 2 days after her death at the Red Wedding. This particular occurrence follows the important rule that has been established in our story, that only death pays for life. It is quite likely that Jon warged into ghost upon his body's death, especially given both the prologue of Dance as well as his last word being ghost. However, magic would still be required to repair his body into a state in which he can survive. This is where Melisandre's red magic becomes necessary. We hear throughout A Song of Ice and Fire that there is power in King's blood. That fact has been demonstrated many times by Melisandre herself, and it is very likely that she will follow the same path when attempting to resurrect Jon. By this point, Mance has been sent off to Winterfell, so the nearest source of King's blood is Shireen Baratheon. It seems quite likely that Melisandre will travel to Eastwatch with Jon's remains in an attempt to revive him from death. The only way to repair the body would be a magical blood sacrifice, perhaps burning a king's daughter as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light. This is exactly where the glamour comes in. Shireen and most of Stannis' men around her are unlikely to trust the Red Witch and her blood sacrifice. However, if the order for such a sacrifice comes from the hand of the king himself, Sir Davos, it seems much more likely that they're willing to listen. What's more, disguising herself as Davos could help shield Melisandre from any negative consequences, both magically and in terms of perceptions, that would come from burning Stannis' daughter, all the while removing a rival in counseling Stannis. At the moment, Davos is on a mission to retrieve Rickon Stark from the island of Skagos. The island is remarkably close to Eastwatch by the sea. There's even a chance that if Rickon is sent back with the Manderleys, Davos could return to the mainland of Westeros, only to gaze upon himself burning the daughter of his beloved king. So, this has been my theory about Melisandre burning Shireen while disguised as Davos. What do you think? Am I reaching? Do you agree with me? Is there any evidence that I've missed? Be sure to stay tuned, because next time I'm going to be going into the Stannis cause as a whole and examining his prospects for the Winds of Winter. I'm really excited for that one, though it will take probably a week longer than normal to come out, because I'm probably going to take some time off for Thanksgiving if you're watching this the week it comes out. But yeah, no, stay tuned for that. I'd appreciate any likes, comments, subscriptions from the video. I love making Song of Ice and Fire content, and I'm excited to share more of it with you. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.